Hey guys, it's Choco the Chocobo here, and in this episode we're going to be talking about wards. If you remember back to the beginner's checklist that I made for the Dota 2 basics in general, you'll remember that I said things like know your heroes, know your items, know your lanes and map, and all that good stuff. And while warding is kind of incorporated into the item section a little bit, there is an entire section dedicated to it in the intermediate part, which is what we're going to be doing here today, because wards are a huge part of the game. If you are familiar with RTS games, which is real-time strategy, or any kind of top-down control game, knowing what's around you in your environment is a very, very important part of what makes you good at the game. Because a lot of this is about information, right? Just like in any other game you play, the more information you have, the better decision you can make. Because you can make better decisions, okay, nature's prophet, because you can make better decisions from more information, it'll in turn make your gameplay a lot easier. If you're newer to the game, just knowing about it can be huge. So I'm going to be going ahead and talking. I'm going to go ahead and be talking about wards right now. And the way I'm going to divvy up the video is I'm going to be talking about how wards work, kind of recapping that a little bit. Then I'm going to be talking about the radiant side, aggressive, defensive, and then utility wards. I'll talk about what that means when I reach each of those sections. Bear in mind that for the aggressive and defensive wards, they flip depending upon what side you're on. So if I describe it as a radiant aggressive ward, chances are it's also a dire defensive ward. I'll make like special notes if I think it's not true. But for the most part, you can think of it that way. Utility wards are utility wards, and I mean, those are shared between radiant and dire. There's no real difference there. So let's get right into it. What are wards? How do they work? So wards are things you can buy at your base shop from this illustrious sir here, or this illustrious man over here. And what they do is you can buy an observer ward for 150 gold, and these things last 6 minutes, and they give you 2 per purchase, right? So as you can see here, I just bought one. It's going to give me 2 every single time. And if you buy like kind of 2 sets, so 4 in total, but 2 actual right clicks, you'll notice that there's a restock time. Once you hit this, it's going to like show you a countdown from your first purchase onward, and it's going to start counting down 6 minutes. Now that's the same duration as an observer ward, and it's there to discourage you from being able to buy like an infinite number of these wards and just cover the map in them so you can know everything at all times. That said, nothing prevents you in this game from kind of hoarding wards and kind of gathering a stash. So if you do want to spread a little bit more coverage, you can make that trade-off. Just remember that there is a 6-minute restock time for just one set of wards to be coming back into the shop. Very important, often overlooked as a detail. So if you're new to the game, don't be overzealous about buying wards and placing them. Sometimes it's more like strategic and safer to kind of hold off on that business, because if they're counter warding you and you realize all your observer wards are gone, you are in trouble, because now you lost a lot of map control. It's going to be counterproductive. You should be aware of that. Sentry wards, on the other hand, they cost 200 to pop. They only last 3 minutes. But again, their function is to see invisible units, right? They're not there to show you vision as much. They can, like a tiny, tiny radius, but not really its main function here. And there is no restock time, so you can buy thousands of these. It's theoretically possible to just cover the map and you'll get all the map vision you could ever want. That said, don't do that. It'll never happen. And as you can see here, I'm going to show the sentry ward first. It reveals this tiny, minuscule, microscopic area that's not terribly useful. You can use it to like put on a rune directly if you're really hurting, as well as it'll give you like a little bit of vision uphill to counter ward, but it's not terribly great. It's not terribly great for revealing area. That said, sentry wards act a little bit differently from everything else in that they are not sensitive to elevations. So, whenever I'm downhill or an observer ward is downhill, they can't look upward. They can look downward but not up. So you can see here, like, I can't see this area. I go uphill, I can see it. Observer wards work the same way. I'm going to demonstrate that in a minute here. But sentry wards are not sensitive to that. As long as you're in the AoE around it, which is basically a screen, it will always reveal the invisible units to you. Very handy, very good in terms of placement. And what's more is, because it's not obstructed, you can place it in like really awkward spots and it'll still give you the information, which is huge. So that's a sentry ward. It's all handy and helpful and all that good stuff. But as you can see here, oh, no, too close. Okay. So this observer ward, right? I'm gonna walk away. It reveals a huge area. I mean, monumental amount of area. it's invisible when you place it, but if you're near something that can see invisible units, it will be gunned down. But you'll notice it covers a gigantic amount of information. On the map representation, it was pretty huge. So remember that when you place these things, they're not like tiny little pockets of vision. They're ginormous pockets of vision. I mean, you can see that splashing over, and the only reason why it's kind of inhibited is because of these trees over here. These do suffer from line of sight. Treat them as if they're a stationary hero that is scouting for you. Very, very handy. And both wards are invisible upon placement. There's like a weird little kind of fade time thing where you can see I'm placing it down, but for all intents and purposes, it's invisible. You need a gem, some way of detection, and Zeus's like Thunderbolt AoE will reveal this stuff. Sentry, gem, Zeus thingies. I think that's it. I can't think of any other ones off the top of my head, but there might be more. These guys are magic immune, and they aren't going to be like, destroyed by Kunkka's cleave or stuff like that, so you don't have to worry about wards being destroyed that way. They come preset with 200 HP. They have no armor, obviously, so they will take like a couple hits, but not terribly many. You can also see how much time is left on these wards by clicking on them through either the timer up here, or just looking at the actual amount of time it says on the ward itself, which is great and handy to know if you want to know the exact timing you want to set up your next ward, or if you're like saying, oh, I'm going to go back, but maybe I should put a ward down before I back. Information you should know. So anyways, let's talk about the first set of aggressive wards. And this is relative to the observer wards, right? The sentry wards, I may have a discussion about them at the end. We'll see. But an aggressive ward, and again, I'm going to do it from the radiant side first. An aggressive ward is designed to give you information about the enemy's movements that isn't necessarily more easily defended by your team, but helps you immensely in terms of shutting the other team down. This gives you kind of the most vision in hostile territory that you can really get away with. So, and again, this is you can find tons of guys out there. They'll tell you like different positions and stuff, and you can look that up if you like. These are the wards that I personally find a lot of people who are new to the game really enjoy using. They're consistent, they're good, and they're just overall very strong positions. So, again, a real quick note: remember, elevation is a huge deal in terms of vision. Also, that minuscule defense bonus, right? This is the only reason why I may put a sentry ward uphill, is because if it's like relatively in the same spot and I can put it uphill, I'd rather do that because there's a chance they'll miss attacking it. It's not a huge deal, but something to bear in mind. So let's talk about aggressive wards. So the first set of aggressive wards are rune control wards, and also what they'll do is they'll help shut down your mid from ganking, as well as kind of give you more information about what you can gank yourself by giving you presence like, oh, I have a haste rune top, therefore I can definitely kind of fast track a gank top and all that stuff. So without further ado, here's your first position. The first one is over here for the radiant side, because what ends up happening is you can see on their hill, you can see both the rune, you can see kind of down here if you see the middle lane running towards you, and you also see this hillside, which means that if they come over and gank you from their jungle, you'll know. The only piece of information you will not receive is that they go like a really long way. This is true for most aggressive wards, in that they make you sacrifice the ability to get there faster in order for you not to know where they're coming from. So if they know you placed it here, the only way to kind of dodge that is through smoke of deceit, or invis obviously, or just kind of going the very long way, which is what you're going to be experiencing for the most part at lower levels, unless you're playing in a higher skill bracket where smoke is used a lot, which is unusual. But again, this is a very strong ward. Shuts down kind of your mid getting ganked from a position that's really obvious, so like it'll block you from getting ganked here, then obviously any path to the middle of the river, it'll shut them down. Very, very handy, very nice. The only compromise here is there's a potential gank path still open through that way, but it's very unlikely. In a similar way, this is a defensive position for the Dire side in terms of your middle play. It's on your side of the river, obviously, so if they start attacking it, you can probably respond to it, pretty expediently, so bear that in mind as well. The kind of counterpart to that aggressive ward, and this is one of my favorite wards of all time, is this ward right here. And dadgummit, I wish I could show you how this works exactly. But basically, you put it there, and this isn't a terribly hard to miss area. I mean, I guess it can be a little bit confusing. You can scroll your mouse wheel like this to see like the lower, not bird's eye view, but like a little bit lower down and then an angle, what the hillside looks like. If you aim it on this like flat part right there, you get a lot of information for this ward. Unlike this one, it shows you both the rune, but it also shows you these two ramps right here, as well as part of the jungle and that ramp. And why that's important is that that gives you so much vision and information about what's going to happen to your top lane. Interactions in your jungle, as well as if they're clearing this camp, or if they're coming to kind of manipulate something strange. It will not give you vision of the commonly stacked camps, stuff like that. So if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. But basically, this is a really strong ward. I love this ward to death. And this is probably the best one that I can think of. For the Dire, this is a defensive ward, but it's a defensive ward that's harder to cover. The better defensive ward is actually over here for the Dire side. And this actual position here for the Radiant is another aggressive ward, and I'll show you what it does. It won't show you the rune, but it will give you the information about these two ramps right here, help you shut down ganks that are coming towards you especially. But it'll also give you some information about this, which can be very helpful in terms of shutting down any unwanted movement for your top lane. It'll kind of bubble protect everything here. It's almost impossible to gank with that ward there, because you can see the river, you can see the jungle side. This will protect your top lane pretty heavily. For the Dire side, this is still, again, a better defensive ward than this one, in my opinion, because it's easier to respond to. But, so that's the top side of the aggressive wards. Now, for the bottom side, very similar. An aggressive ward placement can be here, which will show you kind of them coming down for the rune from mid. It'll also show you the rune, obviously. And it'll give you a little bit of intel in terms of if anyone's walking this way, and it won't cover this ramp directly. It'll show you the area around it. Technically, it will shut down. It will have to show you if someone walks by. It's almost impossible to not see that from that. But you do get only a sliver here towards a Roshan pit. And another weird characteristic, there are two dead zones I should talk about right now. So I will. But the dead zones are, you see how like I can't see Roshan from out here? It's a weird characteristic of the Roshan pit, which is you have to enter the Roshan pit in order to, number one, be eligible to fight it, number two, to be able to see it. So wards follow the same logic. You can't really, if you place one like out here, you won't see into Rosh pit. If you place one in here, you will see Rosh pit, but you won't see out of it. It's very strange in that way. So be aware as you do that for vision. Now, this ramp thing right here, this stairway, same exact rule. You cannot place a ward here and see down this ramp. There's like this dead space that'll always be there. You'll notice that even though I'm uphill and I should have vision here, it won't give it to me. It's because of the fact that this ramp is here. One of the strange characteristics about this game, it's a weird tidbit that some people forget, but very important to remember. So that's aggressive ward. You can aggressively ward here. It's designed more to kind of give you this river vision, but I don't find it helpful unless your bottom lane is very aggressive about procuring runes, right? More often than not, your middle lane is the one that's going to be competing for rune against your mid opponent. Very seldom is it the other way around for bottom to do it. But if they do, this can be a very good aggressive ward. In terms of defensive ward, this is a great defensive ward for Dire. This is a decent defensive ward for Dire. Both of them will give you some information about the Rosh in terms of if someone's going for it, and both of them will give you good rune control, so that's there. Besides that, let's talk about the aggressive jungle warding. Now, jungle warding in terms of the ancient camp, it's kind of a moot point. You can do it. I personally wouldn't recommend it terribly. The two ward points that I would like to call attention to is this one, like right here on the edge, which will show you this V shape, which can be pretty handy. You know, you can see if someone's going for the secret shop, you can angle it a little bit more, change what information you get. But this is, you know, it's okay. I'll show you like a little bit towards the ancient campsite and what's going on there. But again, not a terribly great ward. If they are for some reason very intent on that area, I mean, it might help you with a push. I wouldn't get too overzealous about it. Another aggressive ward position that is here is you can place it at the secret shop and see down the ramp. Now, this one is only really good if you're trafficking the bottom lane and you're trying to guard against the ganks from here, you know, any kind of travel that utilizes this ramp, because the only other way to bottom lane is through the big main like lane ramp, or if they, you know, they force staff, blink, whatever else. So this will help you shut them down in terms of pushing down the lane, unless they also gank you from river. But I mean, common sense wise, if you're placing a ward here, that's what it's for. Again, wouldn't recommend it. It's just not worth it. Now, for jungling, or for warding the enemy's jungle, this ward is a great one. And for these ones, it's exactly what they sound like for Dire in terms of if you put them for the Dire side, it'll protect your jungle. Put them for the Radiant side, it'll help you attack their jungle. Very, very handy. Place it here, you get a whopping huge vision. It is the highest elevation in this area, and it'll give you the perfect vision of, well, actually I placed it wrong. Put on the right side of this rock, get the information about this path right here. Get the information about your lane up here. And I'll show you the ramps for into the jungle, or to get into the jungle for the Dire side. Very, very handy, very lethal to shut down a jungler, as well as if you're pushing up aggressively towards top lane, or even middle. It can kind of give you enough information to know how you need to juke, all that good stuff. So, a great aggressive jungle ward, very common. You can see that little symbol here. It's recognized as one of the main warding spots. Be advised about that. That can throw you off, because a lot of people will counter ward you there. This ward position, it can be good for an aggressive ward. You can place it right here for like a good crossway, and you can see this ramp, you can see this opening, you can see these two ramps. But because it's only really trafficked by middle, and then like a transition from like jungle or top towards middle, the usefulness of this is questionable. I wouldn't do it, but you can do it, so just bear that in mind. For the aggressive warding, that's pretty much it for the Radiant side. So let's go ahead and flip it to the Dire side in terms of the aggressive warding for there, because rune control wise, all the wards have been talked about for the aggressive side. So the aggressive one for here is this guy. So just like they have this jungle ward for the Radiant, the Dire's one is here. Place it up there, and you'll be good to go. Note, there is something really interesting that people forget about this ward. And dadgummit, Wildkin, I'm trying to do something here. Let's see. Alright. A lot of people forget, you can place it from down here, but if you are coming from this side, you cannot place this ward from that far away. You do have like a little bit of range on placing that ward, but you will have to dip into this little area here unless you break down trees. It's designed to do that, and it's a little bit perilous. You can get stuck here, so be careful if you do intend to ward here as an aggressive ward. This gives you, again, great vision, and it will always help you out in terms of kind of giving you control. Because of that weird hillside mechanic here, it's like the amount of aggressiveness that is given to you is a little bit different, and your style will have to be different. But this goes into tactics, which I'm not talking about in this video. So bear that in mind. Great aggressive ward. Very helpful for information. This ward right here, very similar to this one. Mainly trafficked through bottom as well as mid, but of questionable use. And right here is where I'd probably recommend putting it. Alternatively, you can place the aggressive ward for Dire side here, which, you know, it's not terribly bad. Sorry, right about here. It'll give you a fair bit of information about where everyone is. It'll shut down all kind of jungle paths here, and you can know exactly where the jungler is relative to this position. So it is great. And that's pretty much all for the aggressive wards. Yeah, for aggressive wards, that's pretty much it. Now let's go into defensive wards. Defensive wards are weird in that they are meant to protect your lane, and that is like the sole reason for their existence. And note that defensive wards for me do not include kind of shutting down neutral camps. Those are utility wards for me. So there are only really, I think, 3 defensive wards in the whole wide world that I'd ever imagine doing. For the Radiant, this is one of them. It shows you the rune, gives you that rune control. That's kind of handy. But it's really there to protect you from this side getting ganked. Not really helpful besides that, but it can be useful if you, like, you know, a Pudge is wandering around a lot and you have no rune control. It's too highly contested. Very easy to respond to and defend because of the weird positioning of it. And overall, an alright defensive ward. You'll remember I said this is like an alright defensive ward for the Dire side, and that still remains true. This is kind of like the opposite of it, except it's not a great offensive ward for the Dire. This is a really bad offensive ward for the Dire. There's no reason to do this. Unless you're like trying to find a way to sneak one by if they're counter warding. So that's that. The second defensive ward is the Rosh ward. This is a strange ward, and this is the only one that a sentry is recommended for. But a sentry... Whoop. Oh, you can't place it anymore. Just kidding. You can't place a ward here anymore. But if you place a sentry ward right on the opening here... Oh, that kind of makes me sad. Or if you place a sentry ward right there, very handy. free ward, and you can see them walk by in almost all cases. The great thing here is that even if they smoke a deceit, this ward will catch them. Bear in mind that smoke of deceit, again, only reveals the invisible side of smoke of deceit. It will not show them on your map, so you have to be a little bit aware of that. And again, because that weird dead space, you won't see into Rosh Pit. It's annoying, I know, but that's how the way it works. And this is another, again, a defensive position, but this is a defensive position for Roshan. This is to shut down the Roshan attempts. Now, the last defensive position is a little bit of a weird one, in that it's not like a hard defensive position, right? But basically, if you lose a lane, like let's say that this all got pushed down, to place a ward right around here, like towards the edge, can be helpful because it'll replace your tower's vision, which, again, can be pretty nice. That's really up to you, though. Because that's, you know, it is what it is. Now, for the Dire side, and I guess the Radiant side defensive, you know, this one's the defensive for Radiant. I don't remember if I talked about this one with you guys, actually. I don't think I did. Okay, so, sorry. The Radiant's defensive wards and the Dire's aggressive wards, this will be one of them here. And this will be one over here. Now, again, this will give you rune control, very handy, uphill, very aggressive for Dire, very nice for the Radiant as a defensive one. Yes. This one right here, you'll remember I put one on this edge right here. This is the same exact concept. You put it here, you get information about this plateau, and that right there for rune control. Fantastic ward. I've replaced this ward, the one I put here, with this one because I just like it that much more. Because if you put one here, it doesn't show you this information about this plateau, and all you do is like extend your vision a little bit there. I personally don't like it as much, and frankly, at the early part of the game, this section isn't terribly important compared to like this whole area here. For a Dire, very aggressive ward. For Radiant, a pretty decent defensive ward. Although if you were playing defensively, I'd probably place it right there because you own this side of the jungle, hopefully. But that's that. So, and by the way, these ones right here, I don't recommend them. You can put them there. They're defensive for whatever side you're on, is basically the way it works in my mind. Although I really dislike this one. I don't even understand why that's there. I just have come to hate that ward location. Anyways, let's talk about utility wards. Utility wards are weird. Utility wards are designed to screw people over. And what do I mean by that? I mean, let's see if I can pull this off without too much of a hitch. You'll notice that some people will ward in really weird places. One of those things is putting it down like that. And why is that weird and obnoxious? It's because if you put that there, it registers as a unit that's kind of hanging out there. And we'll revisit that in a moment. But basically, it'll spawn neutral blocks, or it'll spawn neutral blocks. It will block the neutral spawns, which can be really infuriating if their team is jungling and they don't want to waste money burning these wards, and also can give you information if you're placing an observer ward, right? So it can be very helpful. If you happen to be playing as invisible people, this also shuts down like their escape path a little bit, which can be very handy. So bear that in mind. But primarily they're for blocking neutral creep spawns. So that's the number one kind of it. You can place them all around. You can kind of test out which ones you like the best. This is a very common one because it's in the neutral camp there. Shuts down this camp, and for the Radiant camp, you would want to shut down this one. So, let's see. Timer up. Alley-oop. Alright. So right now, the neutral camp should spawn, and there's nothing there. Good job, ward. Good boy. Now, another kind of utility ward that's a little bit weird, and you could argue this is defensive and stuff, is the sentry ward positions for the rune coverage. This one maximizes kind of the chance of you finding the right place the observer ward is in and showing where it is. You can adjust it and fine tune it depending upon what direction you think the ward is in. Same thing with there. On my way. And there's, I mean, that's pretty much the only other utility ward that you're going to really run into at this stage of the game, right? You'll find other weird utility ones, like you can use utility wards to kind of clear out weird paths and lock them down. Like you can, for example, if you are dirt poor, you can use like sentry wards on these choke points to reveal just that specific area. And if you're familiar with what area the invisibility is in, it can help you kind of extend your coverage against warding and stuff like that. So that's pretty much it for this guide, guys. I know it's been like a little bit crazy and loopy. I do apologize for that, but hopefully it gives you some insight about how wards work and the right way to use them. So hope to see you guys in other videos, and let me know what you feel about this video in the comments below. And I will see you all later. Ciao.